So yesterday was a first for me, and I will tell you a quick story. Yesterday, for the first time in my career, I actually walked out of a listing appointment. I did, almost right in the middle of it. I just picked up my things and walked out the door. So I went to a listing appointment yesterday, and the woman as soon as I came to the door, she didn't welcome me. She didn't even really say hello. She just opened the door and just kind of ushered me in, sat me down at the counter, and just immediately said, "So, what are you gonna sell my house for?" That was the only thing she kept saying. It was the only thing she cared about. She didn't want to hear about my experience. She didn't want to hear about my marketing plan. She didn't want to hear about any of my successes or what I thought about her house. She didn't even really want to hear about, the actual the market analysis process, or, what I think she could do to maximize her earning potential, or the knowledge that I have about her neighborhood. She didn't care about any of that. Only thing she cared about was what number I was going to commit to sell her house for. It was so clear that she either had a number in her head and she was going to call as many realtors as she possibly could until somebody gave her that number, or she had a set number of realtors in her head and she was just going to kind of, wage war us to the point where she, just chose the one who committed to do the highest number. That is a game that I don't play. That's a game where nobody wins. So at the end of it, she literally started just kind of raising her voice at me. So finally, I just shot her a low number, a number that I knew full well she wasn't going to be happy with. And of course, she just looked at me and just so condescendingly said, "Well, every other realtor said that they could do it for more." And I just looked at her very politely and I said, "Well, ma'am, it honestly sounds like you've already made your decision. Thank you so much for your time today." And I picked up my things and I walked out the door. And I could actually hear her from behind me say, "What, you're just going to leave?" And I did. I just opened her front door and I walked out. There's only been a few times where I have felt like a subservient human with a client, or a potential client in this case. And listen, I get it. There's so much hate out there for realtors, and there's so many people out there who undervalue what we do or firmly believe that we are drastically overpaid for the work that we do. And I get it. There's a large part of me that kind of agrees to a certain extent with all of that. But at the end of the day, we're still human, and she clearly, knows that she has the right to choose whatever realtor she wants. Of course she does. But for those realtors out there like me who are not chasing every single available listing, who are not willing to just, say whatever is needed to be said to just get a listing opportunity, we have just as much of a right to choose what clients we work with too. And in my opinion, if you're not willing to listen and you're not willing to learn, or you're not willing to work with me, then it is just going to end up being a difficult situation, and we're going to end up just not being a good fit. And that's exactly what happened yesterday. And honestly, for the first time, and most people know that I'm a yes man. It takes a good amount of time for me to say no, but she got me to that point. And for the first time, I just didn't want to waste any more of my day on it. So for any of you agents out there that are kind of, hard up for a listing, shoot me a message. I'll be happy to share her contact info with you. And, as long as you're willing to list her home for $1 bajillion, you'll get your sign in the art.